All right, hello everyone. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to Daily Update of my 1000 Days Challenge. This is day 307, so let's get things started. All right, so first and foremost, you'll notice the balance remained more or less the same. So I actually did a couple of trades earlier today in terms of the shorter time frame itself. So initially, it did went in terms of my favor, but ultimately, towards the end of the second half of the day, I took a couple of wrong trades here and there, and I in almost all of my profit itself. So that's reflected over here. So that's something to bear in mind. I'm still making a little bit more than what I would prefer in terms of the mistakes wise. I'm not saying that just because they are mistakes, then I mean just because they're losses, they're equivalent to mistake. To bear in mind that there's a key difference between making mistake, which means for this case that the mistake I made was basically I didn't look in terms of the higher time frame on the 4-hourly chart itself, whereby Bitcoin was hitting the key resistance itself. Yet I was still looking for long opportunity at very weak support region itself. So generally, it's okay to look in terms of support on the shorter time frame when you're trading even the shorter time frame, say for example the 10-15 minutes itself. So I generally only look at say the 1 hour time frame as a guideline. But it's also important to look at say even a 4-hour and daily time frame, whereby those are very key resistances, especially when I've triggered two earlier loss earlier on as well. So that's a lesson that I've learned. No major issue on that. The key thing at the end of the day when it comes to trading is always understanding, was that a good decision, was that a bad decision, and in hindsight, what was it that you could have done differently, or what is it that you could have done better, and things like that. There's no 100% accuracy in that perspective, and that's part and parcel of dealing with probability when it's come to trading itself. All right, in terms of the market structure itself, you do notice that majority, the S&P 500 and Nasdaq remains bullish technically speaking, but do bear in mind that if you look in terms of the S&P 500, especially on say on the daily chart itself, that's where you do see some sort of weaknesses in place, especially if you switch over to the candlestick chart. So candlestick chart show that there was a rejection followed by an inner bar candlestick itself or indecision. And today we actually broke low, finding potential support as this 20 exponential moving average itself. But like what I mentioned, even if we do break any further, we may potentially still find support over here, or even potentially find a triple bottom just as well. All right, and moving on in terms of Nasdaq, similar thing itself. So even though it broke below the 20 and 50 simple moving average, I'm not that particular about it. So overall, we are still making distinctively higher lows and higher highs. So generally, the uptrend remains intact on a daily basis. And moving on for ASH, like I mentioned, this curve is a gap up on over here. I do see a potential drop down and retest this 20 exponential moving average before we continue towards upside, which is potentially a very healthy pullback in our opinion. On the other hand, for KY itself is a little bit very cautious because we seem to have break below the 20 exponential moving average. That's for today close. So hopefully we can push above that. But of course, I do not see such kind of strong momentum carrying on with just 5 hours left to go. But let's see how price react to it. But if it does stay below there, I'll be tentatively a little bit more bearish. And if we do consolidate near these horizontal support itself, is generally not a good thing, especially for extended period of time. So for Bitcoin itself, we actually did has a very nice push towards the upside, but do bear in mind that technically we are still retesting this key region itself, which is this 4-hour key resistance at 39.6K. We actually managed to reach a high of 39.49, around 39.5K. So I did mention this was a 4-hour key resistance itself, and here you are, I actually forget about it when it comes to trading on a shorter time frame. So I was still going long very near towards that. So I did make, I think the 3 key losses that I made was made purely based on that just as well. So that's something to bear in mind and to take off. All right, so be in mind that in terms of Bitcoin, I still play a very strong role in terms of how it impacts for the other altcoins as well, even if you're trading them purely itself, I would say. So do take into mind that now if you look into just purely price action itself, I'll lean towards further bearish momentum, especially if you see that even though we are trending upward in terms of price, do bear in mind that we are seeing not exactly a strong bullish momentum itself. But of course, like what I say, the narrative is always one thing. If there's strong enough buying momentum and we can break up nicely, then that will be great. But otherwise, there's tentatively a potential downstrike pressure over here. If you look in terms of hourly chart itself, you can draw extremely a very nice kind of, what do I say? Yeah, a very nice kind of symmetrical triangle right over here. So the reason why I typically don't draw this kind of support line simply because is the fact that at the end of the day, this kind of support line is highly subjective, like what I mentioned. If I can actually shift this up a bit here and there, or shift this starting point here and there, you get a very different kind of potential where is the breakout. So this is the reason why I generally do not trade this kind of a trade necessarily just based on that, but rather to say I look for further confluence signal before looking for an entry and support. But I also do see confluence that these two things is also hitting at the same spot, in addition to this 4-hour horizontal resistance itself, which is something that I'm more concerned about. So henceforth, I feel that this was definitely not a good trade in hindsight, but otherwise, overall, things is still performing, or I'm still acting according to my initial trading plan itself. All right, so with that said, I've come to the end of today. There's no clear bearish or setup just yet on a 4-hour chart. If there's a break of this this upslope trend line, you could potentially go for a short if the target support is over here, because I do see that this is forming quite a decently nice triangle itself. So potentially we could retest, we could drop and retest over this support over here. We retest it one more time and break upwards. That would be a great sign. And even if we don't retest all the way here, my more bullish sign would be if we retest this 50 and 20 exponential moving average, either or, and if support is found and we can actually consolidate right below this downslope resistance itself, then there will be a very great start. Then we can actually have a very nice breakup above and potentially retest even this higher high over here on the 41,200 region just as well. So with that said, I've come to the end of today. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop by your comments below. Otherwise, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.